easy to love me now. Would you love me if I was down and out? Would you still have love for me, girl?
When it came to hooks, only a few artists measured up to Nate Dogg's standard in the 90s and early 2000s. His collaboration with 50 Cent on 21 Questions gave the song the uniqueness it needed to thrive in a competitive hip-hop scene. While Nate Dogg is known for the classic rap tune Regulate, his voice was also the reason why so many other rap songs blew up during this time.
Let's hit the east side of the LBC on a mission trying to find Mr. Warren G.
Nate's love for music began when he was a child, and while still in high school, he met Warren G, who would then become his closest friend. But at the age of 17, Nate dropped out of high school and joined the U.S. Marines before going to serve in Okinawa, Japan. He was eventually discharged 3 years later, and in 1989, he returned home to a hopeless situation. Unable to get a job and provide, he was kicked out by his mother, forcing him, his cousin Snoop Dogg, and his friend Warren G to a life of crime. But these boys knew crime wasn't the way to get out of the hood. So in 1990, they formed a rap group called 213 and recorded a demo tape in Long Beach. Fortunately for them, Dr. Dre happened to be at a bachelor party when the song came on, and the producer instantly brought them on.
Told you she's a whore. Yeah, laying it down.
But this didn't exactly work out like the guys expected. Dr. Dre didn't really want all the members of the group on Death Row Records, but he wanted Snoop Dogg. Warren G, who was Dre's stepbrother, and Nate Dogg were considered good artists, but just not good enough to hit it big in the rap scene. Eventually, Dre took a bet on Nate Dogg, featuring the singer in his debut solo album, The Chronic. And as you already know, this turned out to be the song that gave Nate a deal with Death Row Records.
Double G.
But this sudden turn of fame didn't stop Nate from pursuing a life of crime. In 1991, he was charged with robbing a check changer shop. And 3 years later, he was again nabbed for the robbery of a Taco Bell in San Pedro. This wasn't exactly great publicity, but as any creative would admit, it was good inspiration. After his successful feature on both Dre and Snoop Dogg's albums, Nate sought to conquer things on his own. In 1994, after Warren G got signed to Def Jam Records, Nate and his friend co-wrote Regulate, one of the greatest hip-hop singles ever made.
They were in the same spot, in need of some desperate help.
Regulate was a hit. It stayed in the top 40 of the Billboard Hot 100 for 18 weeks, and 2 more weeks in the top 100, and was also number 2 for the whole of May. It sold over 1 million copies since its release, and has been certified 2 times multi-platinum, while also getting a Grammy nomination for Best Song Performed by a Duo or Group. The song was so huge that Warren G once said that while performing in Japan, thousands of fans who couldn't even speak English knew all the lyrics. Later that year, Nate Dogg released One More Day, and it reflected on his life choices, involvement in crime, and time spent in prison. While being signed to Death Row was a big deal at the time, it wasn't really working out for Nate. His albums were delayed because the label focused on other artists, and in 1998, he left the label. This prompted them to release 2 of his delayed albums, G-Funk Classics Volume 1 and Volume 2, both of which didn't pull the weight he would have wanted. But his problems with Death Row were a little more than delayed albums. There were rumors that Nate really never liked Suge Knight, and was in fact worried that something could happen to him. Every time Nate visited the label, he always had a gun and a bulletproof vest on, just because he didn't trust Suge. Apparently, Nate Dogg was also not happy with Suge's behavior at the 1995 Source Awards.
And one other thing I'd like to say, any artist out there want to be an artist and want to stay a star, and don't want to have to worry about the executive producer trying to be all in the videos, all on the record, dancing, come to Death Row.
But whatever this beef was between Suge and Nate, it didn't affect the relationship the singer had with Tupac, as he appeared on several songs on his album.
They should have murdered me when I was born, 'cause now I'm trapped in the violence of the storm. How long will it...
Now back to his album. Nate Dogg's album sold just 33,000 in its first week and reached number 20 on the R&B charts. These were rookie numbers to what he used to have, and this instantly revived a sentiment that Nate was better on features and not the sort of artist to make solo hit songs. So he went back to doing what he did best, landing features with Fabulous, Eminem, and Ludacris. Music and Me became his next album, and this time it reached number 3 on the R&B hip-hop chart. Then 2 years later, he announced an eponymous album, Nate Dogg, slated to be released on the 25th of November 2003. However, the album never came, but fans finally got a chance to hear Nate when the group 213 reunited for an album in 2004. But amidst the glamour and fantastic hooks, Nate was suffering behind the scenes. At first, it was his legal issues. In 2000, he allegedly assaulted his girlfriend and burnt her mother's car. He was then charged with kidnapping and domestic violence before being bailed out by Dr. Dre for $1 million. In 2002, he was arrested on a tour bus in Arizona after he was found with 2 pistols and cannabis. He was sentenced to community service, weeks of probation, and compulsory drug counseling. At the time, his alcohol addiction was also at an extreme high, and it was rumored that the rapper couldn't make a song without getting very drunk first. His troubles with drinking eventually turned into anger and frustration, an act which led him to break into the home of his fiancée in 2006. His fiancée had cheated on him, and he wanted to get his ring back. However, when he broke into her house, he realized that somebody else was in there with her. So he beat up the guy and escaped the house before he was eventually caught by the cops. The next year, he had a serious accident that worsened his already failing health, but still, he decided to go ahead with the Vegas concert. In December 2007, he suffered a terrible stroke, and this weakened more than half of his body. But despite what he suffered, Nate didn't stop drinking.
Like, do right, do this, do that. You got high blood pressure, take your medicine. We would be on him all the time.
A lot of people told him, Nate, maybe you shouldn't be drinking. You know, he said, no, I'm gonna do this. Let me do me. You know, don't worry about me.
A full recovery was previously expected, but this didn't happen. And to make matters even worse, things weren't going really great with his wife, LaToya Calvin. In September 2008, these complicated matters led to another stroke for the rapper, and this time it was devastating. The rapper could not walk, talk, or perform motor functions. He then had to go under the knife, but this did little to improve his health. Unfortunately, on the 15th of March 2011, Nate Dogg passed away from complications arising from several strokes, taking away one of hip-hop's most versatile artists at the age of 41.
And to show you how much love he had for me, real talk, he didn't trip on me, he didn't cuss me out, he didn't get mad, he just laughed at me like, cuz I knew you was gonna do something like this. And that just shows that that was a real friend to me. What a friend I had in Nate Dogg.
Right.
What a friend I had in Nate Dogg.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Nate Dogg had an illustrious career, but it's impossible not to imagine how great he could have been if he didn't have his demons. But despite his short life, his legacy in rap music will never be forgotten.